Hey everybody, it's the Trout. Hope you're having a great day. This is one of my guitars that I have. It's made out of wood, which most guitars are made out of wood. Sometimes they're exotic wood, sometimes they're what we call regular wood. This guitar has a rosewood guitar neck on top, which is an exotic wood. All my guitars that you see behind me that I perform with are all made out of wood. But today, I found during this episode a group of guys that came together to make guitars made out of aluminum, or as they like to say in the UK, aluminium, because that's where they are in Birmingham, England. They're called alien alloy guitars, and they make a wonderful instrument. And you're probably thinking, aluminum guitars? Well, you're going to have to hear the story, and you're going to have to look at them to see what you think of them. I think they're going to be playing great, and I hope one day I get to try one out. But before we get to our story about alien alloy guitars, take a moment, if you like this channel or like this video, subscribe and like it. It only takes a minute and we appreciate it very much. So up next, two airline guys that said, let's make some guitars out of aluminum. That's next on The Trout Show. Let's give a little bit about your musical background because you don't go into, well, first off, I assume you play guitar.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because I have another person that I interviewed a couple months ago that he didn't really play. He just wanted to build guitars. And he does wood, mostly wood. He does things like look like Telecasters, and he just did one that looked like Lindsey Buckingham's guitar and that kind of thing. So, but I don't think he plays. I think he just likes to do it. So you've been playing for a while. I mean, did you start young and you said, and then one moment you said, I think I need to build guitars?
Well, yeah, basically. I mean, it started off, I started playing when I was sort of 10 years old.
Okay.
And it was, I think it's, there is a progression as you go, isn't there, really? That you're interested in the music, but as you go, you start getting interested in the sounds and, you get interested in tones, don't you? And I think we all go down that route to a certain degree, messing around with pedals and amps, but yeah, a dangerous hobby in that respect. But it's, I started messing around with, swapping out pickups in Telecasters and all those sort of Fender style guitars. What could I do if I upgrade various parts? And you just kind of, you go down that rabbit hole, get super interested. And that's kind of how I got started with building. Was I want to refinish a guitar. I want it to be bright orange now, and things like that. So that was really the start for me. And it kind of got, as you go, it's like, I want to do different shapes, stuff that isn't available on the market. So you start maybe modifying kit bodies, and then you start buying timber and going down that route, really. And
well, so were you looking for a special tone, or are you just always looking for something you go, this is exactly what I want? I mean,
I've always just like different, really.
Okay.
I'm really always inspired by sort of the classics and vintage styles and whatnot, but always really like vintage style, but with maybe a slightly modern twist, or just, even if it's just like a Strat or something that is in a completely unusual color, something that Fender might not have done. So that was really it. And so so I built, by the time I was sort of 18, I'd built a couple from relatively scratch, I suppose. But they're not necessarily that good at that point.
Yeah,
but you've got to go through quite a few guitars to actually learn the skills of doing it. Things like frets and getting a guitar that actually plays nice you have to learn the hard way, don't you?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's not, I don't, I talked to somebody a few months ago that they built acoustics. They didn't do an interview, but he was building acoustics with his brothers, and they were like 6,000, $6,000 or $7,000 a piece. And
Wow.
they just, because they were so intricate as far as building them, and you know this because you have to buy the wood and all that stuff, he just gave up. He said it would take 6 months to build one guitar. Well, you can't
Yeah.
make a living doing that, but people
No.
wanted his guitar. So I understand, it's obviously somewhat easier to take a piece of wood, and we're going to get to yours completely different now, but piece of solid wood like a telly or even a Strat, and kind of work on that instead of taking wood and steaming it and putting it on all shapes and all that stuff. But people forget about in my opinion, and people don't understand this, but the fretboards and all that are so intricate as far as design and how far the strings are away and all that good stuff. And like you were talking about the frets, and then what do you put on the fretboard? Rosewood, or I've got an ebony one on my Les Paul. And as you go along, I'm sure you ran into this to a certain degree, maybe not later, but maybe earlier. It's harder to get the woods. People
Mm,
don't, they're not, they're considered, a lot of the guitar parts are exotic.
yes. Yeah.
And so were you playing in a band at the time when you were going through this, or you just love messing with the guitar?
Yeah. I was in a band as I was a sort of teenager and sort of early 20s. I was in all sorts of different bands doing all sorts of, different types of music. And then kind of, I don't think maybe we weren't really good enough to get much progression in that. We started following off, going to a few weddings, going to a few sort of parties and whatnot, and you see,
Yeah,
you see these wedding bands and these sort of
yeah.
party bands, and they're all playing covers, but it's just some incredible music there, and there's a slightly different skill set there, I suppose. But we started a sort of a party band back in 2016, which is what I'm doing now. That's where I'm gigging, which is nice. It keeps us like really busy, and you gain a reputation over the years, which I think is probably most important for wedding bands. Really, that reputation,
So
because
how many's in the band?
there's five of us.
Five of you.
There's five.
So you must have a keyboard player?
We have got a keyboard player. Yeah,
The old
yeah,
keyboard player. And
exactly. Yeah,
I, you know, if you've lived long enough to play any kind of guitar music, you've probably played in a wedding sometime. My first gig was in a wedding. I think I was
yeah.
13 or 14. I was young. That's the first paid job I got. I got paid like $25 to play. It's many years ago. And I just said, wow, this is cool. And then you learn as you go along and you progress, and you've probably read this too, I'm sure, whether it's the same thing. They get drunker as the night goes on. The
Yes.
people get looser and looser. And I just remember as a kid when I was like 17, 18 playing, and they'd say, turn it down, you're too loud. And then by the end of the evening, they're going, turn it up, you're not, because they're like, it's blitzed out of their brain. But
That's it.
you have to do that because that's how you hone your skill. And like you said, with your band, which is, what's the name of your band?
Groove Collider.
Okay, Groove Collider. Okay. So you get a reputation, and then the next thing you know, instead of running around trying to find places to play, people are calling you, which is
Exactly.
okay. And so of the five members, do people have regular jobs and this is a hobby, or somebody do this? What's the situation there?
Yeah, we've all got day jobs, I
Day jobs,
suppose.
as they like to say.
So
Yeah.
yes, but it's good. It's been the same lineup for years now, and with a tight knit group of friends doing it, which is a really nice thing to have. But
That is cool.
yeah, yeah, I think
And
like you say, it's you gain that sort of you have to have a good reputation to a certain degree to do it, because people are trusting you with their first dance, which is one of the most important parts of the wedding day for a lot of people. So
right.
which is nice. But yeah, like you say,
What's the popular first dance song nowadays?
um, there's a few. So Better Together by Jack Johnson is a popular one. Like of the modern ones, it tends to be stuff like that. Ed Sheeran, Thinking
Yeah, I can see
Out
that.
Loud,
Yeah.
sort of the softer stuff. But
Yeah.
people sometimes go for sort of 60s, 70s Motown, more upbeat love
Hmm.
songs, which are they're really good fun to play. they're all written by the bands in the studio at that time. That some interesting chords and progressions.
And so you've always, so you're in a band, you're playing, you know how to put about guitars and all that stuff. And then one day you said, as you progressed through this building guitars, you said, I think I'm going to start my own guitar manufacturing company, but I'm not going to use wood. I'm going to use aluminum, which, kind of
Yeah.
goes back to the days of Keith Richards playing the old was it Ampeg? It was acrylic. I remember he played in
Yes.
completely clear. And then the 80s, we went through the, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. They were headless and they had ball ends in both of them. They were composite, carbon composite. They don't make them anymore. And they were,
Right. Okay.
I can't remember the name of them. I know a band that played, that's all they played. They'd always talk about it. They never got a tune because they're not wood and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What possessed you to say, I'm going to build an aluminum guitar and see if it sounds very good?
Well, I mean, it's the complicated answer to it is I've worked for a company and we make uh, portable machinery for aerospace.
Okay.
So essentially, when you've got something as big as like an aeroplane wing, you can't put that into a normal milling machine. You have to
Nope.
take your equipment to it. So that's how we got started. And we have been doing that for 20 years now, building
Mm.
these portable machines, but they have to be really lightweight. So we've got a lot of experience in machining aluminium,
Hmm.
making it as light as possible. But one of the other things we do is we build fighting robots, and that's more of a hobby, a side hustle, if you will.
Do they, yeah, they have that show over here. Do they have a show over there? You can fighting robots. They have what's it called? A battle bot?
Yeah,
I think it's called
you've
battle
got
bot
battle
over there.
bots. Yeah,
Yeah. What do you have
yeah,
over there?
robot wars.
Robot Wars. Okay.
So, and we've been involved in all those shows, and my colleague has been fighting robots in China and all sorts. And but the thing with the
That's
fighting
so funny
robots,
to me.
I promise you, there is a relation to the guitars here.
No, 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 no. I just think that's funny that people. What are you touring? Are you with the band? No, I take battle bots and I take robots and we fight. And apparently, it has to be money in it, or you wouldn't be going to China, or wouldn't go. There has to be some kind of money into it. But anyway,
Yeah.
I digress. Go ahead.
It's well, the fundamental design of those robots is that there's always a maximum weight, and so you want to build something as strong as possible with but being lightweight, and a lot of that is cutting these intricate shapes into the chassis.
Hmm.
And we had used our sort of CNC machinery to make Telecasters and wooden body shapes and whatnot, and we just one day saying, well, how can we combine the two of these to actually make something that's our own? And that's when the aluminium started. We just started sketching out ideas with these sort of organic shapes cut out of an aluminium billet that would, it's still weight relief, but it's really pleasing to the eye. Well, at least that was the goal anyway. And that's how we initially came up with our first prototype that, you can see on the website now. And that sort of design is sort of carried through in the few models that we have done, where it still looks like a guitar, but whereas you'd normally have a solid piece of wood, there's all these they're quite organic looking, quite rounded, flowing
Hmm.
shapes that are cut out to
Hmm.
save weight. So trying to make a feature of it, really.
Yeah, you did. I can see. I thought you were going for the design, but you're going for weight. So that when you get the billet, how big is the billet? A big piece? Is it a big piece?
Uh, yeah, fairly big, and about 45 millimeters thick.
Okay.
I can't remember how much it weighs off the top of my head. I have weighed it, but then it's as it goes through the process, we're just taking more and more out of it and lightening it. So the actual finished weight of them comes in sort of around 5 kilos.
Okay.
So it's not too bad at all, really. That's kind of like about the top end of what a Les Paul would weigh.
Yeah, which is about 15 pounds, which I don't know what that means in kilos, but that's what they
Yeah,
weigh, and that's why a lot of
yeah,
people don't play them because they're so freaking heavy. But it all depends on your style.
yeah.
I have sitting over here is a Strat like guitar, but that's
Mm,
because it's got the different pickups, and when I'm recording, I want the Strat sound. That
yeah,
goes, or I want
yeah.
the humbuckers. But I'm a sustain guy. I like to hold a note for like 5 minutes, like the old show. They had to sustain, kind of like that's kind of the kind of guy I am. Although I can play relatively fast, I still like and I'm a blues guy, which kind of makes all kind of the same situation. But I noticed that on your guitar sitting behind you, but also on all the ones on the website, I thought that was a design factor, which it is, I'm sure, but you're losing weight. And being my wife was in the airline industry as an executive, I was fortunate to go through where they overhaul big planes, and they're all made out of that aluminum. And as I told a friend of mine one time, this is years ago, overhauling a 747, and I walked in, and all it was there was the stringers. The floor was gone, and I said, well, that's like balsa wood, for the floor. And he goes, what do you think? We're going to put plywood in it? I mean, how are you going to get a plane up off the ground? But people don't realize this, and they don't think about how thin that is in an airplane, as you know, because I mean, like a wing, you can almost pick up the whole thing by yourself because it's so light, but it's also incredibly durable, as you well know, because planes have to hold up to a lot of stress factors. But so when you're developing these guitars, and I think they're really cool looking. Of course, we're so used to the two standard looks, the Strat or the Les Paul, something, or even the Tele look. But you had to figure out too, as a guitar player, how's it going to sound? Because I mean, as soon as I saw your website, I thought, man, that's going to be like all tinny and all that because you don't get the wood. But did you have to overcome that, or is there a natural sense with the product you build it out of that gives you some kind of resonance like wood would do?
Yeah, I mean, it was to be honest, on the first ones, it was very much sort of let's see how it goes, and we chose sort of Alnico 2 humbuckers to go with, and sort of went quite conservative in sort of the electronics and the hardware choices, just to keep it quite neutral and just see what the actual sound of the guitar was. And it's very I always think the best way I can describe it is hi-fi. It's got boosted lower end, it's got boosted higher end in terms of frequency. It's quite a unique thing.
It's kind of a
yeah whereas on some guitars you might sort of have like a mid scoop, no, sorry, a mid boost as such. And the other thing, like you say, is sustain. There's something that's happening in that body that there is so much sustain in them, which so it's when you pick it up, it still feels quite homely. It still feels like the guitars that but the sound is it's detailed, it's different, which I really like.
Well, and it's not going to be like a hollow body, semi-hollow body 335 Gibson. It's not meant to be like that. It's made to be like a rock guitar, somebody that wants to get some power out of it and some boost on it, or some, grunge or whatever you're looking for. And so when did I, and I apologize for not knowing this, when did the company actually go, here we have it, here's the website, we're ready to start selling these? When did that all come to pass?
Well, it was we started prototyping at the end of 2019, sort of getting things drawn up in 3D CAD, and it was just at the start of everything that happened with COVID that we really kicked off. So that was really instantly a spanner in the works. And then
imagine, for everybody, Toaster,
and of course then there was, we'd come up with our first design, which was the polymorph, and we made just a small number of them just to test the waters, really. But there was no guitar shows in the UK, and there was no real opportunity to get them out into people's hands so they can actually try it, because it is a niche product, I think. And it's if you're into old school Telecasters, it might not be your thing. It might be, but it is quite different, and so that was a bit of a challenge. So we really started going towards the end of 2020, and then at the start of this year we've just come out with the one that's behind me, which is our new model, the Conspiracy, which is
I like that name, Conspiracy. It's a perfect name for what's going on in the world everywhere now. We all think it's a giant conspiracy.
Well, yeah, you said
It
it.
doesn't matter which country you live in, brother. It's all the same, so.
Yes. But it was I mean, the idea with the conspiracy was really taking the first one was the polymorph was taking a big leaf out of the book of Les Paul and that
Hmm.
sort of
Hmm.
single cut design. And it was an arched, we machined an arch into the top. So it was super comfy to play. And all the sort of electronics and everything, it was, yeah, it felt quite like a Les Paul. Whereas with the conspiracy, we took it down a route of sort of like a Jaguar Fender Jazzmaster
It kind
sort
of
of
looks like a
vibe.
Jag. Yeah, yeah. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and tried to just adjust the shape and make it our own. And we've done that, and then obviously, but then try and put in organic shapes into it again. And yeah, we couldn't be happier with the results on this one.
Well,
It's
you should be very proud of what you're doing, brother, because I think the thing is what's happened now, and this is the difference between your age and my age. When I grew up, there was basically two guitar manufacturers, Gibson and
mm,
Fender. And that's what you saw all the time. And you might see a Japanese guitar or something like that. But as time's progressed, all these manufacturers now, I talked to some young players the other day, and I said, "What are you playing?" He goes, "Well, it's a custom made fill in the blank." So I mean, it's not like people go into the music store and go, "Oh, I want a Fender, I want this." People are used to getting something. And the other part of it, I think, as a musician, we can be snobbish about what we play, and especially when I was younger, and if you had the name brand stuff, you were like, oh man, he's got money. And then if you had a Marshall stacking behind you, you're like, oh, he's got real money, So yeah, because they come from England, my God, It's like, but I think you're in a situation now with your product that's perfect timing because people are looking for something different all the time. As you said at the
Mm,
beginning of this conversation, you were driven to find something different.
mm.
I'm not one of these guys. I mean, I was a big I live in Texas. I was born in Texas. People like Stevie Ray and all those people I saw all the time and got to see them. They were always constantly changing their pickups and changing their necks. I never did that. I just
Yeah,
feel like I just don't want to bastardize my guitar. It's just the way I am. It's like, okay,
yeah,
this is what I wanted. This is what I need. I don't want to change anything.
yeah.
But people like Stevie Ray was a prime example. He's always changing the necks. A lot of people do that.
Mm,
But now it's not, people are still looking for that. I think some people are looking for the ultimate tone, which I don't think exists, only for your ear, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, and so if you get to something with these, that is your ultimate tone, what you're looking for, God bless you, my friend. 'Cause it's like, it's like the Holy Grail. And non-musicians don't understand that. I mean,
Yes.
they don't understand. You were talking about pedals, and I don't like using a lot of pedals. I mean, when you listen to my music, you can hear delays and stuff like that. But I don't have 20 pedals on the floor when I play. I just don't like them. And it's just really only about three different things or four different things that people use. It's just I don't need all that stuff. But I think that now you're looking also, not only people are looking for something different, but also a different look.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, people still want to look kind of cool when they walk on stage, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And as you know, Miles, when you play in a band, people watching you don't have a clue how hard anything is you play.
Yeah.
You were talking about Motown. If it's three chords, everybody goes, "Wow, they're really good." To you, it's like, okay, three chords, But to the average person out there watching, they don't know. So it's the same way on a guitar. They look
Yeah.
at it and go, they may. This may be kind of a sad thing to think. If you're a good player, they'll remember you maybe more because you had a cool looking guitar like you have. You
Maybe
know,
so.
it could be a marketing thing where you're out and you go, well, what's the name of the band? I don't know, but that guy had that aluminum, that thing, that guitar that was kind of cool. So when you build these, how long does it take you to build a guitar?
Oh, there's only two of us that are making it, and
Wow.
so it's all. I mean, that's the real beauty of it. It's all done in house. I mean, it's not technically handmade because all of the body is done on a CNC machine. But I suppose, depends what you call handmade, really, because it's only going through two pairs of hands the whole time. So
Well,
it's
yeah, but you're still assembling. Even the major manufacturers use a machine to cut their
yes,
woods. Now,
yeah,
obviously, on some of them, like the Les Pauls, are put together. But somebody has to still. The machine cuts all the wood out,
yeah,
and and
absolutely,
and even though there's two of you doing it,
yeah,
the thing about it is you're still making them from scratch.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so
And
we it's best of both worlds, really, in terms of, we can get you can get your design absolutely right in 3D CAD, and you can transfer that to a machine. So things like your neck profile and
Mhm.
your action, your string heights and everything, you can work that out. So you're going to get a really low action, really something that's buttery smooth to play. But all the finishing is done. It's us that is doing the sanding and the application of oil onto the neck and that sort of thing. So there's the precision machining part of it, but also like the real, it's a luthier working over the instrument, paying such close attention to it as well. So it's best of both
I think
worlds.
what's cool about what you just got through saying is how much things have changed.
Mm,
Using CAD machines designed a guitar, you know, that's completely different than it used to be.
mm,
You probably figure out. I was at a studio recently, and the young man I met there, he was working in the studio. He had a remake of a 57 or 59 Les Paul, and they
mm.
call it a baseball neck. And it was like,
Yes.
you know what I'm talking about? It was like a big
Mm,
chunk of, I'm going like, holy crap, how do you play this? Oh, I love this thing. And I'm going like, dude, I need something thinner than that. But I'm sitting there thinking when you're talking about that, you're an engine. You're an engineer by trade. I mean, the fact that, really, because not everybody can sit on a CAD. You have to know what you're doing to do that. And then to
yeah.
go ahead and figure out, okay, I need this much in the string height. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, and you can, instead of taking a piece of wood and going, well, let's cut it. No, that ain't gonna work. Let's do it again. So on a
Yeah.
typical, how long are your necks normally? What's a typical length on your neck? Or how many frets do you end up having? How many do you go three?
Uh, yeah, we go, well, the scale length is 25 and a half. So
Okay.
classic Fender. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I personally really like 22 frets. So that's what's on the Conspiracy, and sort of going for quite a chunky C shape in terms of the profile. So again, it's quite familiar. If you think about, the fretboard and the neck of the guitar as being like the interface, the user interface of the guitar,
Yeah.
that is, if you pick it up, whilst it looks completely different, it's still going to play and feel familiar to a certain extent, which I think is quite important.
Yeah, and have the sound. You want it to have something. So what kind of heads do you put on them? What's your tuning? Do you use
Uh,
Grover or do you use
they're
something else? Or
they're
Grow
Goto
or
510s.
okay.
So they're yeah, top of the line Gotos, and they're rock stable. They're slightly higher ratio, so a bit finer detail in terms of tuning. But yeah, I mean that's just one of those things. Seem to have used all the brands over the years with when I was hand building guitars, and just those Goto 510s are absolutely rock
Well,
solid.
you know it works. And,
Yeah,
and you know what's great is you're a player. You know it
yeah,
stays in tune.
yeah. That's
I mean,
it.
I would assume by now you know how to tune. Put the straight
Yeah,
guitar, but because people
yeah,
fight over that, and I was like, no, you're putting them on wrong. That's why it stays out of tune. And
yeah,
and I had a friend of mine. He bought a new guitar. He goes, his friend bought one in a band. And he goes, he can't keep this guitar in tune. I say, he's not putting the strings on right.
yeah.
I mean, if you're buying an expensive guitar, the tuners are going to be good. They're not going to be cheap crap.
That's
And
it.
and so like what you do is you already figured it out because you've been playing one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and so you and your partner are doing these things.
Hmm.
And where do you see? I mean, I see this a lot in businesses like yours.
Hmm.
Can you mass produce your product? And I don't mean thousands of them, but can you, obviously you guys are two of you, but I mean,
Yeah.
let's say this thing took off, which I hope it does for you guys. Um, and people in America or Japan, and all of a sudden you've got 100 orders or 200 orders. Is it, is it scalable? I guess is more of the question I have.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, good question. The way that things are at the moment, yes, I would have thought so. Um, I think it's probably quite a considered purchase for a sort of guitar in that sort of £2,000 price range, and they're all built, especially with the Conspiracy. It's all customizable to a certain degree. So the body
Hmm.
is set as it is, but you can change the pick guard colors and sort of pickups and whatnot. But yeah, in regards to scalability, I think if people do want a custom guitar, we can, as it is currently, there is a 6 to 8 week lead time.
Well, that's
They're,
not
they're
too
built.
bad.
It's not bad. I mean, I've seen some custom builders with many months of lead time, and which is great to see, because like you were saying, custom shop builders with such high demand. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah.
um yeah, I think we would take it as it is, really.
And
But yeah.
sometimes the custom shop stuff, I can't tell. They just, I know I was in, I traveled recently to do some recording, and I was in a friend of mine says, he had a guitar that needed strings. I said, well, let's go buy some. And we were at a guitar store, and the guy, I said, why is that $9,000? He goes,
Yeah.
it's a custom shop. And I'm going like,
Mm.
okay. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, I didn't take it down and just hanging way up because they didn't want anybody to touch it. But to me, it was like, okay, it looks just like another Strat next to it that's $4,000 or three, whatever it was. So, but no, my point was, if you got people that like it, and then somebody else sees it, and then somebody else sees it, and all of a sudden this thing starts churning. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you want to become important in the area you serve, but it's also one of those things. And I used to be in marketing for people, and I said, how big do you want to get? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like they don't play guitars in any other country, fill in the blank. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
for you, it's open season for anywhere.
Mm.
And yeah, granted, you have to ship them, which costs some money, but you just build that into the price.
Hmm.
And people will pay, I think, extra money for something they really want while they do it all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at a standard guitars now, how expensive they are.
Yes.
They're not cheap anymore, and I'm sure they're more money over there because they got to bring. If you're bringing a Fender or a Gibson over there, it's got to be more money because it always has been because they're
Mhm.
paying to ship them over there and all that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and so, do you have standard strings that you put on them? You have a particular brand you like, or you just? I mean, you probably like your own brand. What brand do you typically like playing?
Uh, Daddario,
Okay.
used them for years. But yeah, in regards to sort of the scaling up sort of side of things,
Right. Yeah.
it's really, I think we could, if there was demand enough for it, we could, you know, I guess the same as any business, you could always look at taking on more staff and whatnot. Um, but again, you would need to find staff that know what they're doing. It's such a niche thing, isn't it? Sort of
Yeah.
guitar building and whatnot. And there's, you have to be into guitar building to know how to do fret ends and how to get a guitar playing nicely. It's not necessarily a skill that people would have otherwise, really. So I guess you could always look at that, but I think we'd always want to be in a position where each and every guitar is going through our hands before it leaves the door, because yeah, in my mind, in business anyway, it's always a really good idea to grow slowly
Oh,
and
I don't
steadily.
disagree with you. It's all about quality as far as I'm concerned. And you may not
Absolutely.
want that. You may, and your partner in the business might say, "Hey, I'm happy with making X amount of guitars a year. That's it. We don't need to
Mm.
make any more." Which, of course, then people go, they want them more because they only make this many, and you got it's a 3 year wait or whatever.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants to grow into a giant business. I'm assuming, Miles, that you and your partner in the business have ownership in it because you love doing what you're doing. Obviously, you must, or you
Yeah,
wouldn't be doing it.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
I mean, it's the price for a guitar is the raw material, buying all your pickups and everything, and then the labor involved in actually creating it. But all the you know the labor of love side is all the development and all the thinking about it in
The R and D,
background and
R and
the
D.
R&D, and
Yeah.
we're currently working on more things now with the conspiracy to offer even more options on the customization side of things. But I think when you're saying about sort of, you could be making hundreds and hundreds, we do, we go to engineering shows and machining shows and whatnot, and we've got a few friends who work with some of the larger machining companies, and they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
well, if you were to take production maybe elsewhere in the world or whatnot, or get really modern machinery, you could be pumping these out at, you could probably pump out a machine, a guitar body in an hour or so.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be making hundreds of them, and your price could be, you could be competing in the range of sort of like a Mexican Fender.
Yeah, but you don't want to
Sort
do
of,
that. You don't want to cheapen
and
your
yeah,
product. You don't want to cheapen your
well,
product.
at that point, you're not seeing them pass in front of you. You're not. It's that quality control side of
I
things, really.
understand.
And I guess that's what I really like about it, just being the two of us, is because there's only two pairs of hands on it throughout the whole time. You get to know each one as you're making it, and you capture any little flaws in the finish or the
Mm-hmm.
machining or whatnot that you can just completely rule out. You find them and you get rid of them. So, which is good, because you know any guitar that you buy, whether it's sort of low end Squire or up to like a Gibson custom shop or whatnot, you're going to be spending, the player is going to be spending so much time with that, they're held right against their body. They're going to spot those finishes,
Right.
like imperfections, and they're certainly going to notice it if it's not playing very nicely. So that I think that's where we want to stay, really, is.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I do, because I think you have ownership in it, and you're making sure because as a player yourself, you understand it because because you play guitar, and you it's almost like it's custom built, and there's an ownership in that nobody else can do. Why do people go to luthiers? Why do Stradivarius violins cost $2 million? Because nobody can build them like that anymore.
Mm.
And so you're building something that is custom and it's owned, and people probably going to eventually, I believe what's going to happen to you guys is people are going to covet these because they're all custom made. You know, when and taking the time, because it is true that even Gibson, they mass produce a lot of guitars, but they have so many different levels now.
Mm.
But each one, and I try to tell people this, each one is different because it's wood, and somebody's still sanding it down and trying to get the shape, but it's still unique to its own character. And your situation is you're developing these and building these products that are custom made, and each one has two guys doing it. I mean,
Mm.
that's pretty freaking cool when you think about it. I mean, because I really think so. Because, I mean, we live in a mass produced world. In your business world, you have to have a goal. What was your goal when you guys said, we're going to start building guitars? Just want to build a few and see how it works? Or what do you think?
It was literally along the lines of wanting to see what we could do with the machinery and
Huh.
with aluminium, because I mean, aluminium guitars, as far as I know, they go back to the 19th century. End of the 19th century, people were messing around with aluminium on guitars. And then, sort of later on in the 20th century, we had with Travis Bean was a massive one. And those sort of legendary designs, that there's a few people out there now that are making aluminium guitars of that ilk, and we looked at them and said, well, they're doing that thing and they're doing it exceptionally well, Electrical Guitar Company and the such like, and their aluminium bodies tend to be a big billet that is then hollowed out around the back, and a plate would be put over the back of it, so it essentially is a a solid body, hollowed out, I suppose. And we, you know, we didn't think that we could add anything into that space. And at the end of the day, those guys, they know what they're doing, and they're producing such an exceptional product. It's like, we'd be stupid to compete. We've got to do something different. And so that's, you know, that's so yeah, we decided to get inventive with it, really, but try to, you know, not for the sake of it, try and still make something that is, you know, looks great, feels great, and not completely ridiculous. So that was the goal, really. And we wanted to offer sort of standard models, sort of that, and you know, with this new one, you've got a bit more. We wanted to offer a bit more customization, so it is entirely yours. It's the colors you like, the pickups you like, but we always had a bit of a, and it's you know, part of it's on the website in terms of the custom shop, is that if you wanted a left-handed version, we can do that, and we're not going to charge, you know, we're not going to charge loads extra just to design that. Or, you know, if you wanted something, you know, slightly different, I mean, you know, we can't completely redesign the whole thing, not without having to put you know, an extra cost upon it. But we're really flexible, and I guess part of that is just the love for the instrument and all the variations you can have with it. It's yeah. And if, you know, if someone comes along and they say, oh, I've got this awesome idea, and it's tweaking this and it's changing that slightly, and you know, we're probably going to look at that and go, you know, that is an awesome idea. Let's let's
well,
make that
you
happen.
can continue to change it. So do you have the first one you sold? Do you know who that person was? Obviously you do.
Yeah. And that was that was an unusual moment, really.
You mean you're going to give us money now?
I think it was.
Hey, he's actually going to give us money. Well, but you know what? It's like that. You know, you work on something forever, and being my background is in sales, marketing, executive, and stuff like that. And when you start out in anything new, just like me doing this, it's taken me a year and a half to get anywhere with it. It takes you a while to move ahead, and once you get there, you know where you've been, but it still takes you a while. But then I used to tell people who work for me, it's always the first one is the hardest. You develop it and you're going like, I want to, and then you sell it, and then you're like, what's so hard about that? But it just takes forever to get there. And sometimes the timing is about what you're doing and all that stuff. And now you're in a situation where you can do it and make them and be proud of every one of them. And I think that's the goal that you have. And if you go, I mean, I'm going to ask you the most important question you're probably going to be asked today. If you could do this full time, would you quit your other job if you're making the same amount of money?
Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely.
There you go. That's all you need to know. Miles, thank you for your time. All right.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for your kind words.